The Michigan Man Podcast, episode 184. Hello, Shane Morris. Unless Devin makes a rapid recovery in the next few days, it looks like the pride of Warren De La Salle High School will be under center when Michigan takes the field Saturday night. Stay tuned for our Buffalo Wild Wings preview.
Oh man, Ufer's been broadcasting for 27 years. I have never seen anything like this. They need 2 inches. Dennis Franklin, the quarterback, taking a long con from center. He heads off to Shuttlesworth 5, and it's down to the end zone. Touchdown! Touchdown, Dennis Franklin! Oh my God, Dennis Franklin fooled everybody. He fooled me. He fooled the entire Ohio State team. Kneeling is Larry Gustafson. Attempting will be Super Toe. Super Toe will kick the 30-yard field goal. It's kicked and sent over in. It's a tied-up ball game. 10-10. Okay. Under center is Wangler at the 45. He goes back. He's looking for a receiver. He throws downfield to Carter. Carter has it. Look at those Wolverines. 95 Wolverines going to the end zone. Carter's got the pass in the air. It's done. Ufer is going out of his mind. I have never seen anything like this in all my 40 years of covering Michigan football.
This is the Michigan Man Podcast. On GBMW Go Blue, Michigan Wolverine. For Wolverine fans from coast to coast. Go Blue and Merry Christmas. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. When the season started, most of us expected Team 134 would end up in a prime New Year's Day bowl, maybe even a BCS game. Of course, that's not how it played out. Instead, the Wolverines are spending Christmas in Tempe and making preparations for a battle with Kansas State Saturday night in the Buffalo Wild Wings Bowl. As of today, it appears freshman quarterback Shane Morris will make his first start under center for the Wolverines. Maybe not the way Brady Hoke wanted it, but it is what it is, and it should be fascinating, if not a nerve-wracking game for all of us to watch. Coming up in just a few minutes on our visitors segment, we'll get the scoop on Coach Snyder's Kansas State Wildcats from their radio play-by-play voice, Wyatt Thompson. Then on Michigan Gameday, we'll get the latest news from the angel of the big house, Wolverine beat writer Angelique Chengellis from the Detroit News. First, a quick look at Wolverine news and notes for this week. On today's show, we're going to stick to just football and our Buffalo Wild Wings preview. As I've been reminding you for the last few weeks, we're not going away after the bowl game. We'll be back next week to recap the Buffalo Wild Wings Bowl, and then in the first week of January, we'll take time to review this past season, talk about what needs to change for next year, and close the lid on 2013, so to speak. In January, we'll turn our attention to basketball. It should be an exciting season, despite the choppy start for Coach Beilein and his young team. We'll also spend time keeping up with women's hoops, our top 5 ranked Michigan hockey team, and of course, we have to keep up with football recruiting. We'll have more recruiting coverage than we have in the past, so for all of our listeners who just can't get enough recruiting information, stick with us and we'll keep you updated. We're not going anywhere after football season ends, and we hope you'll join us each week for the best podcast coverage of Michigan athletics. In 1989, Coach Bill Snyder took over a football program at Kansas State that Sports Illustrated called the worst Division I program in history. You can't say that anymore. Coach Snyder has turned K-State into a team and a program to be reckoned with, not only in the Big 12, but on the national scene. Joining us next on our visitor segment is Wyatt Thompson, the radio play-by-play voice of Wildcat football, here on the Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue, Michigan Wolverine. Joining us on our visitor segment today as we preview this week's Buffalo Wild Wings Bowl, K-State Radio play-by-play voice, Wyatt Thompson. Wyatt, great to have you with us.
Well, thank you. Good to be on with you. Happy holidays.
Wyatt, it's the first ever meeting between these programs. Both are 7-5 heading into this Saturday's game. Is the Wildcat fan base excited about this matchup?
Oh, very much so. I think that's the best part about it, to be honest with you, because, that selection Sunday, if you will, all of our fans, I think, were thinking it was going to be Nebraska, which is a team that used to be in the Big 12. And we had a little bit of a rivalry with them over the last few years in the conference. And then all of a sudden we started hearing Michigan. And in visiting with our fans and our players and coaches, I think they really are excited about it. First time, as you mentioned, but yet it's also Michigan. And it's one of the biggest names in the history of college football. And I think they like that. We've got Auburn coming to our place next year. They like playing and seeing those kind of people at some point, no doubt.
Well, there was a story up here in the Detroit News today that Michigan returned 4,000 of their tickets of the 11,000 allotment. I know K-State fans are known to travel in droves to bowl games following the team. How have the ticket sales been for K-State?
I think they've been pretty good. I don't think necessarily off the charts, to be real honest with you. We won the Big 12 title a year ago and played in the Fiesta Bowl down in Tempe, so this will be our second straight year going back there. And this is a little bit tougher time of year. Last year we played in early January, this time the 28th of December. We won't have the masses, I don't think, that we had last year. But you said it well. Year in and year out, K-Staters really do travel pretty well to the bowl. A lot of them plan vacations around Kansas State football. So I'm going to guess we'll probably have in the neighborhood of 15,000, 18,000 there for the game when it's all said and done.
When you look at these two teams, though, Wyatt, Michigan this year, very inconsistent, as we that follow them have seen, other than the Ohio State game and probably the Notre Dame game, a solid performance in any game. And then K-State started slow, but finished strong, winning 5 of their last 6. Could have made it 6 if they could have stopped that Oklahoma running game. So, we don't know what all of that means for Saturday's game, but the Wildcats got better as the season progressed, which is exactly what you like to do heading into the bowl game, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And that's, I think, to be honest with you, there are a few staples that go with Bill Snyder, Kansas State football. And in my opinion, I think that is one of them. Varying stages depending on teams. We had a championship team a year ago and lost a large senior class, about 24, 25 guys. We had to replace 9 starters on defense. We lost the Offensive Player of the Year in the Big 12 in Colin Klein, an NFL receiver, and Chris Harper. So we had significant losses. And you mentioned the struggles early in the start, the fast finish. And that's perfectly said, to be real honest with you. We really struggled out of the gate at times to just have consistency on both sides of the ball. But I think once the 2 quarterback system started to click a little bit, I think we got a little bit better there. And the defensive improvement was just kind of week by week. We played, honestly, the toughest part of our conference schedule early. We started at Texas, at Oklahoma State, and Baylor, who won the league at home, and started 0-3. But when we started conference play, Coach Snyder talks about he could kind of see that the kids were starting to turn the corner a little bit. They were getting better. And at the end of the day, I think they really did that. And that's just something that, he's very, very good at what he does. And I think that is something that happens with most clubs, whether it's a title team or, a team like this one.
Well, Wyatt, Michigan fans are not really that familiar with K-State. So if we could, let's take a few minutes and take a look at some of the Wildcat players who are key to this team, and you can give us your take on each of them. And let's start with the wide receiver kick returner Tyler Lockett, Big 12 leader in all-purpose yards, very talented player.
He's probably the guy you start with, no question. He's really kind of a quiet young guy. His father, Kevin, was a star here in the early to mid-'90s. He had an uncle, Aaron Lockett, play here shortly after that. Tyler's been around the game all his life. He's smallish in stature, probably a lot like the Gallen kid that Michigan has. Very similar probably in size, but a really, really tough young guy, an excellent route runner, has really good hands. And you mentioned the return part of it. He's been really one of the best kick return guys in the country over the last couple of years, in my mind. probably our most explosive player, to be honest with you. And he's I can't describe to you what a good young guy he is. He's a terrific kid, and with that bloodline, he's become an awfully good player.
Well, you've also got on that offensive side running back John Hubert, and John finished big against Kansas in the last game, 220 yards rushing, but he's sort of struggled this season too, hasn't he?
Well, he has, and that was part of the deal early. To be honest with you, when the year started, we really thought the strength of our offense would be the offensive line, because we had our top 6 guys back, and all of those guys had started at least some, if not the entirety of the season before. But I think, excuse me, because we didn't have Colin Klein, I think there was a natural thing there where we had to kind of get used to, the new pieces, if you will. And I think John was part of that. Coach Snyder would probably be the first to tell you that John maybe didn't run with quite the energy and the passion that he did a year ago early in the year. But like everybody else, once he started to turn the corner, he turned it on. And in the last month of the year, he was as good as any back in our conference. He's had back-to-back years where he's had just short of 1,000 yards. And he's a guy that can catch it out of the backfield. He's good in blitz pickups. Certainly he's one of our top players offensively, without a doubt.
Well, and from what I've seen of him this year, the one thing that I like about him that a lot of backs don't have is he can make something happen when there's nothing there.
Yeah, that's exactly true. And I think that the impressive thing about that is he's not the biggest guy. And I think he kind of represents Kansas State well that way. We don't always necessarily have, 4- and 5-star guys. We've done it with, maybe undersized guys, under-recruited guys, red shirts, gray shirts, that kind of thing. And John was a guy that was not overly recruited out of Midway High School in Waco, Texas, but he had a terrific high school career. But my point is that he may not be the biggest, fastest, strongest guy, but what I think you appreciate about him the more you watch him is that he can run outside, he can run inside, he always seems to be moving forward. He's just a very productive guy at the end of the day, to be perfectly blunt about it.
Well, at the quarterback position, Wyatt, you've got Jake Waters and Daniel Sams. Sams is the runner, Waters the passer. Tell us about these two guys and why Coach Snyder has used that rotation for the better part of the season.
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think probably the simplest answer is I think he would have liked to have settled on one, and it just didn't really happen that way. Daniel was a part of our program a year ago. He was Colin Klein's backup. Jake Waters was the National Offensive Player of the Year at the junior college ranks at Iowa Western. And very, very bright young guy. He was here last spring, which certainly helped him. And when we got into fall camp, there really wasn't a lot of separation. And as you indicated, one was pretty much known as a thrower, one was pretty much known as a runner. And that was part of the issue early. I think we were pretty predictable. But as the year went on, Daniel got better throwing it. Jake got better running it and understanding our run game. And it just kind of played out that Coach Snyder said, you know what, there isn't much separation. Both of these guys are good players. Both of these guys deserve a chance to play. So right or wrong, that's what he did. And it ended up really to being pretty productive. When you look at it, Daniel was one of the top rushers in the conference, and Jake was one of the best passers in the league when it comes to passing efficiency. And it was just kind of a growth thing, and those kids, I think, kind of accepting the role. And it didn't happen overnight. It took a little bit of time. Again, we were 2-4 at one point, but once they got going, we saw a lot of production out of both of those players, depending week to week on who was going to play more than the other. But they both really had a lot of opportunities and both did well.
Well, Jake Waters, though, the last two games did get the bulk of the playing time, didn't he?
Yes, he did. And part of that, I think, was dictated by the opposition. We, in the Oklahoma game, as an example, we got behind early. They were really running it on us. We had a real hard time shutting them down at the line of scrimmage. They really won the game because they won the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. The Kansas game, I think, was more about, We had probably better balance in our offense, but K-State was just frankly better than Kansas, and they were able to do what they were doing, and I think Coach Snyder just went with the hotter hand and the guy that had been doing it with more production lately, and that, of course, was Jake.
Well, watching some film on this team getting ready for the bowl game, Wyatt, I've sort of had a tough time putting my finger on an identity for this offense. Is this the kind of a team that needs to get the running game going early, or is it just the type of an offense that takes what the defense gives it?
I don't want to dance around this, but frankly, it's probably a little bit of both. I think in a perfect world, I think they would like to be able to run first always. I think that's probably true with everybody. But there have been some teams where we've struggled running the ball against, and so then we've gone to the passing attack. One of the really fine things about Bill Snyder as a head coach among the many is his ability to kind of watch and adjust as games go on. And he's going to find a way to move the ball against anybody for the most part. Now, it may be better against some than others, but he'll find a way. And they would certainly prefer to run it. They're going to be facing a Michigan defense that is pretty big, pretty strong. They've given up some yards, no doubt. But I'm really intrigued by how that part of the game is going to play out.
Our guest here on our visitor segment today as we talk about and get ready for the Buffalo Wild Wings Bowl, K-State Radio play-by-play voice, Wyatt Thompson. Wyatt, let's turn our attention, if we could, to the K-State defense for a couple of minutes, sort of familiarize Michigan listeners with some of these guys that are important on that Wildcat defense. And let's start with a guy who I like watching, defensive end Ryan Mueller, among the nation's leaders in sacks, led the Big 12 with 11.5 sacks, as a matter of fact, 18.5 sacks for loss, or tackles for loss, I should say. He's a guy that you've got to like because his motor, he's always running.
Well, you said that exactly right. That, I think, is his biggest attribute, to be honest with you. Ryan, I think, probably typifies our year in K-State football as well as I described Tyler Lockett earlier. Tyler was a much more highly recruited guy. As a matter of fact, Ryan was a walk-on here. But he is just a high energy guy. He's developed into one of our top leaders, if not our real leader on this football team. He's just a stand-up, accountable guy. And Coach Snyder just talks so glowingly about him and how hard he plays, no matter the situation. It can be 3rd down and 15 in the 4th quarter of a game in Week 9 or practice on Wednesday night. I mean, there's not a lot of difference in how he goes about that, and I really respect that about Ryan. He is a terrific young guy, and a year ago, to be honest with you, he was really kind of our 3rd down specialist defensive guy. He'd play inside and outside in 3rd downs, and clearly a backup role. And for him to come out in this particular season as a junior and have those kind of numbers and that kind of production is really pretty amazing. He's had a great year.
Yeah, he's a very impressive player. Another very impressive player on that defense is free safety Ty Zimmerman. Broke his tibia in the November 16th win over TCU. He's an NFL prospect, the unquestioned leader on the defense. He's a special kind of a player and a talent, isn't he?
He really is. He's the son of a coach. His father is the head football coach at Junction City High School. We're located in Manhattan, Kansas. Junction City's just 18 or 20 miles down the road. He's played here as a starter on defense since he walked into the place. He's the first player in the history of K-State football to be recognized in some way, shape, or form as an all-conference performer 4 straight years. It gives you a little bit of an idea of his football acumen and background. He's just the nicest kid, and just kind of like having a quarterback on offense. He's the quarterback and the head of our defense, if you will. I would just say that he is always, for the most part, in the right place at the right time. Really has a great understanding of what we do, but even more so just the game itself because of his background. Just a superb young guy.
Is he going to be able to play, Wyatt?
Last week at our media gathering, Coach Snyder, who really, frankly, doesn't talk that much about injuries, was asked about him. He said he's doing fine and that he expected him to play. Will he be 100%? I'm not sure I could guarantee you that. But Ty's a gamer. I really think he'll probably play, and I think he would probably play a lot. This will be his final game. He's been around here a long time, and I know he wants it badly. Let's put it that way. I expect him to play.
Well, a couple of other improving players on that D are linebackers, Jonathan Truman, Blake Slaughter. Their development's been important to the overall play and improvement of this defense, hasn't it?
Oh, for sure. And let me start, if you don't mind, with Blake Slaughter. I think an intriguing story with our football team. This is his 5th year. He's going to walk out of Kansas State with 2 degrees. And he redshirted a year ago and played behind Arthur Brown, who was the Defensive Player of the Year in our conference and now plays with the Baltimore Ravens. And to do that late in your career, I think, is somewhat hard. But he did it. He stood on the sideline and wore a headset. He was kind of like a graduate assistant coach, and I think he really learned so much. And he led our team in tackles this year. Very, very smart guy. Again, not the world's biggest or fastest guy, but in terms of his run fits and all of those things, he does a really, really nice job. He can run a little bit. And Jonathan Truman's really pretty much like that. Jonathan's one of our better lifters. He's a really strong young guy, really smart. I'm not sure, frankly, where we would be without those two guys. Very unheralded players when the year began, but I think our fans certainly now understand how important those two guys are to our defense.
Well, Wyatt, on the Yahoo Sports Kansas State team report I was reading earlier today, it said the Wildcat defense is described, they described it, I should say, as gritty, their overall speed suspect, and their strength up front questionable. Is that a fair summation of this unit?
I think probably for the most part. When you really talk about consistency, and that's where it all starts with Coach Snyder, that's probably pretty fair. You know, we're far from perfect. We're far from dominant. But gritty, I think, is a good word. And to me, what that means is no matter what's going on, they're going to continue to play hard, and they're going to fight, scratch and claw, and whatever you want to say there. And again, I just think that's what they are. That it's their personality, it's the way they handle it. So I think for the most part, that's a pretty good assessment.
Well, Coach Bill Snyder, Wyatt, completing his 5th season as coach since coming back from that 3-year retirement. He's been extremely successful at K-State, as we all know. He's a great coach, and he's really just a first-class guy, isn't he?
He really is. This is my 12th year at K-State. And what he has done here is pretty astonishing when you really think about it. I mean, we had a stretch in his first tenure here where we went to 11 straight bowl games. To put that into its proper perspective, K-State had been to 1 bowl game in the history of their program before Bill Snyder. So what he has done here is just, it's really hard to put into its proper perspective because we never were winners here before. As a matter of fact, Sports Illustrated called it the worst program in the history of college football at one point. And for us to be, and you know what, that was probably true. I jokingly say, and you'll like this, in the 27 games prior to Bill Snyder, Kansas State was 0-26-1. And if you really think about that, he came in here in '89 and in his first season won 1 game. And it was a slow build. But he is such a attention to detail, leave nothing out kind of guy. We just, like I've described with this season, slowly got better and then started getting a little bit better athlete. And then it caught fire. I mean, we had one of the best teams in the country in '97 and '98 with Michael Bishop and those kind of guys. So what he's done is really hard to describe unless you really are here and witness it, because it's been amazing.
No, he's done just an incredible job and is such a well-respected coach. So, I mean, what more can you say about the gentleman? His teams are 6-10 in bowl games, though. 0-3 against Big Ten teams, I should say. K-State is. And they've dropped their last 5 bowl games. From the snippets I've been reading this week, it sounds like the K-State players, they want to win the game, not only to end the season on a high note, but for Coach Snyder's legacy. In that regard, do you think this team is feeling some extra pressure to win this week?
Yeah, I think probably so, but I think most of it is not from the outside. It's more on the inside. I think they're wanting it to do it, as you said, for Coach Snyder. I think that's totally accurate. I think these kids are wanting to do it for the senior class. This is the first senior class that we've had since 2003's Big 12 championship team that went to 4 straight bowls, but they haven't won a bowl game yet, and I think that is really important. But you know what? I'm just being honest here. when you play in bowl games, you play against good teams. Everybody wants to win. I mean, we've played Arkansas and Oregon in the last couple of bowl games we've played in the Cotton and in the Fiesta. And frankly, both of those teams were better than us that night. So who knows what this one will bring, but it has been a major topic of conversation here, and even Coach told me that, yeah, there's some pressure with it, but I think he's okay with that. You know, if we win the game, that's awesome. He'll just go back to work the next day and do what he always does. So it's probably going to be okay either way.
Well, on Saturday, I think we know that we have two young teams, and they both are overall darn young teams. They have a lot to prove. They'll put a lot of pressure on themselves, and that should make for an entertaining game, shouldn't it?
Oh, I think so. I'm so excited for it, to be honest with you. You know, we were so excited last year to be at the Fiesta, and it was a great thing, and I've been so fortunate in my career to see a lot of big games and a lot of great teams. But you know what? This is a special thing because, you know, like we said at the beginning of the interview, you don't get a chance to play in Michigan every time. And Coach Snyder was the first to stand up and say, hey, this is the winningest program in the history of college football. You better respect it. You better be ready to go. Let's go have some fun. See what we can do. And I really think that's probably how they'll approach it. Sure, there's some pressure, but, hey, there's pressure in anything. He always talks about if you're going to invest in it, there's pressure, and it hurts if you don't get it accomplished. But hey, it's a fight that if you're willing to fight it, then let's go see what happens. It'll be fun.
Well said, and I think it'll be fun too. Our guest here in our visitor segment was as we get ready for the Buffalo Wild Wings Bowl Saturday night in Tempe has been K-State radio play-by-play voice Wyatt Thompson. Wyatt, it's been a pleasure.
Well, it has been for me too. Thanks so much for the opportunity to visit with you, buddy.
Our Buffalo Wild Wings preview show continues with our Michigan Game Day segment, and this week's special guest, the Angel of the Big House, Wolverine beat writer Angelique Chengellis from the Detroit News. That's next here on the Michigan Man podcast on GBMW Go Blue, Michigan Wolverine. With us on our Michigan Game Day segment as we preview the Buffalo Wild Wings Bowl coming up this Saturday night from always sunny Tempe, Michigan beat writer Angelique Chengellis from the Detroit News. Welcome, Angelique.
Well, hello, Mike. I have a feeling it's a lot sunnier where I am than it is where you are right now, so I'll take that as my Christmas gift, I guess.
Yes, and you are right on about that. Although, as we record this interview, it's sunny, but 16 degrees, so I'm sure slightly cooler than where you are.
Just a little bit, and but yeah, it's very beautiful here, and watching the players come off the plane on Monday when they arrived, they're all just sort of looking around. I think a lot of them haven't been to Arizona, and I think a little stunned by the terrain and the desert and just how it looks just so different here than it does at home.
I know, and you know, it's been a long time since Michigan's played out there, I believe in 1986, but you know, and people are probably disappointed, people being Michigan fans, that it's not a New Year's Day game and all of that, but to spend Christmas Day and the holidays and get to play a football game, pretty nice location.
It really is, and I know that you're right. A lot of people are disappointed about the not having a New Year's Day game, but the option was, Jacksonville, and they had done that game a few years ago, Rich's last season, and I can tell you a lot of the players didn't enjoy the bowl experience for a lot of reasons. I don't think they enjoyed the location. The weather was crummy. It was just not a very active scene, and I think that they were all relishing the idea of, it's not a New Year's Day game, but it's someplace different. And I think that they know the season's been a disappointment, and I think they just want to use this time to get better and to see where they are and where they can go. And I don't think it mattered to them what day they were playing.
Well, for the last few weeks, Angelique, we've been wondering if Devin would be ready to go against K-State. And, of course, Monday, a lot of folks waiting to see Devin come off the plane when the team arrived in Tempe. And though it's not official yet, It sure looks like we'll see Shane Morris under center Saturday night, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, I stood out there on the tarmac watching the players come down, and Shane Morris walked without any issue. I mean, he came down the stairs and waiting, and Devin emerged, and he's on crutches. He's on a good-sized boot, goes mid-calf and protecting his left foot. And, he was walking gingerly down the stairs, obviously with crutches. But, and I thought Brady was more telling than usual. He didn't say for sure that Shane will be the starter, but he said if they had to play, as soon as they arrived, that Shane would play, and that Devin really needs to practice by Wednesday. He was not practicing Monday, and that he would have to get out there to be able to play. And it still seems like a stretch because he hasn't practiced since the Ohio State game. I mean, since he injured himself on November 30th, that's a long time, even for a guy who's been in the offense and knows the offense and is a terrific athlete. But when you're out that long, and I know, Brady says he's done alternate conditioning, and he even tried to throw the ball around a little bit the other day with the boot on. It's just not the same as being in a game, in game speed practices, that kind of thing. It's just not the same, and I would be absolutely stunned. You never know, but I would be absolutely stunned to see Devin Gardner on the field.
Well, I think we all would at this point, especially after how much time he's missed practice.
Mm-hmm.
Al Borges, since the Ohio State game, since bowl prep has started, has said that Shane Morris has been working with the full playbook. But in reality, you would think the game plan has to be scaled back for him in his first start.
Absolutely, Mike. And I asked Al that, and he said that their feeling was they're going to throw all this stuff out there, not knowing yet who was going to play quarterback. And then when it became more clear to them that Shane would be the starter, that they would probably scale back a little bit and find what he's been doing well, find what they think will work with someone of his skill set. And he has terrific skills. He's just not experienced. I mean, he's played in 4 games and only sparingly. And I think that they will scale back. They have to scale back. And I think that they don't want to put this guy in a position where he has to throw every down. I mean, I think that they're going to have expectations from the running backs and certainly from their offensive line that they want a performance like they saw in the Ohio State game from those position groups. And I think that's the only way that you can give Shane Morris a chance to operate and get comfortable and do what he does well, which, I mean, he does throw a nice ball. He's been working on touch. He's been working on all these kinds of things that shape and evolve a quarterback. And, I think that he certainly has been pressed into more, they wanted to redshirt him this year, and they couldn't do that. I'm sure they didn't want him to play in this bowl game if he didn't have to. And, unless there was a big score on Michigan's side, of course. But it's been an interesting season for Shane Morris, and I'm sure he wanted to see the field more than he did, but he's going to see it a lot on Saturday night. There's no doubt in my mind.
Well, his Saturday's opponent, Angelique, K-State, they won 5 of their last 6. If they could have slowed down Oklahoma's running game, it could have been 6 in a row. They're a young team. They got better as the season progressed. On the other hand, Michigan, also a very young team, wildly inconsistent this year, and in many ways, primarily on offense, they seem to regress week after week. So when you look at it that way, it would appear that though they share the same 7-5 record, K-State is the team that ended the season trending up, weren't they?
Absolutely. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And I read some of the early stories from the early part of the season when they were not doing well, when Kansas State was not doing well, Mike. And it was interesting. They were having offensive line problems too, even though they returned some veteran guys. They just weren't clicking. And at that midway point, that's when they started to finally gel a little bit, finally get in sync. And they have a pretty good receiver. They've been playing 2 quarterbacks. They will play 2 quarterbacks Saturday. And I think that they were just trying to find their way, and especially at that position. And you're right. I mean, you look at Michigan, and I think you could make an argument that the Ohio State game was progress. I think offensively, not defensively, but offensively, that you saw something that you scratch your head and wonder why you hadn't seen it all season. And I do think that there was a little bit of an upturn in the offense that game, but you could say it was because they're playing their arch rival. Maybe Al Borges is coaching to quell the critics and save his job. All these different things that could have factored into it. But you're right. In the big picture, this is not a Michigan team that really took steps forward every week. They took a step, they'd step back a couple times. I mean, it was a very hard season to watch, and I do think that Ohio State game, however, gave people a little bit of a kernel of maybe this offense could be good. And if they get these pieces in place, if the offensive line plays like it did against Ohio State, if the running backs contribute like they did, maybe this offense can perform well. But that was with Devin Gardner running the show. It'll be different to see what a freshman can do running the show if all those pieces are in place like they were on November 30th.
Indeed it will. Look at K-State, though. They won the Big 12 last year, not that long ago. They lost a slew of players to the NFL. They lost 9 starters on defense. This team plays in a spread-happy league, and they have struggled against teams that want to line up and pound the ball between the tackles. So when you're game planning, you would think this game would present Michigan with an opportunity to pound it with Derek Green and De'Veon Smith, which in turn could take a ton of pressure off Shane Morris.
I see you didn't mention Fitz Toussaint. What's going on, Mike?
Well, I expect we'll see Fitz plenty in passing situations.
Absolutely, and I thought he did a good job in those situations late in the season. But you're right. I think we saw improvement there. I think I had wanted to see De'Veon Smith all season, and I thought he came in maybe a little not underappreciated, but less publicity than Derek Green, certainly. And I thought he'd be the guy who could maybe step up and do something special. And I think at the end, he did look like a guy who could be that kind of back that, that Michigan's looking for, and certainly Derek Green too. And you're right. I think you've got to rely on these two, and I think that they will. And I'm not saying a freshman quarterback. I mean, we've seen freshman quarterbacks perform well before. We've seen them at Michigan. We're seeing it at Penn State this year with Hackenberg. It's just a quarterback who doesn't have a lot of experience is what I think is the problem. And with Shane Morris stepping in, and that's why you're absolutely right. Derek Green and De'Veon Smith have to have big games if they're going to keep Michigan in the game and have a chance to win on Saturday night.
Well, other than Ohio State and Notre Dame, Al Borges' game plans and play calling were highly scrutinized this year. We heard it from a lot of quarters. Now he has to come up with a game plan executed by a freshman quarterback making his first start. So I suppose after this Saturday, he's either going to be hailed as a genius or the mastermind of an offense that's loaded with big talent but little or inconsistent production. I mean, either way, this is a big game for Al Borges too, isn't it?
It is a big game, Mike, but I think it also gives him a little breathing room that if they don't play that great, if they don't play that well, he can say, well, look, I didn't have Devin Gardner. I had Shane Morris, and he's a guy who's thrown 9 passes in 4 games, and he's just not ready, and I did the best I could. I think there's, I'm not saying he's an excuse maker. I'm saying that there is a little bit of a built-in excuse for Al Borges if the offense doesn't work in sync and like it did in the Ohio State game. And I think though that Shane Morris is a guy who could be capable and he could step into a role that he's wanted to have for a long time. And if he stays patient and if he gets the help from the backfield that he needs and he gets the blocking that he needs, I think he could have a decent game. But you're right, it is about what Al Borges feels Shane Morris is capable of. And Al has to call a game plan with that in mind the whole time. And certainly Al Borges knows that. He's worked with all sorts of quarterbacks over his long career, and he's not going to give this kid too much on his plate and put him in a position to fail. But I think if Al has a tough game, I mean, the critics are going to come out. They're going to be sharp like they have been most of the season, and he's more than aware of it. We all know that. He does pay attention to this stuff. But I think he'll be able to say, look, I did my best with a kid who wasn't ready to play. And I think that buys him a little time. I really do.
Well, you're probably right about that. Our guest here on our Michigan Game Day segment as we preview this weekend's Buffalo Wild Wings Bowl, Michigan beat writer Angelique Chengellis from the Detroit News. Angelique, from a defensive perspective, at least on paper, Michigan seems to match up pretty well with this K-State offense. K-State they have a nice back in John Hubert. He's not explosive. He's a nice back. They have a running quarterback in Daniel Sams, a passer in Jake Waters, and maybe one player who you might consider a game breaker, and that's wide receiver Tyler Lockett. But this team has struggled, as you mentioned earlier, with their offensive line and consistency running between the tackles. I think you have to like Michigan's chances of being able to stop or at least slow down this offense.
Oh, I think so too, Mike. I really do, and I think we can talk about the offense and what a high point it had against Ohio State, but the defense really didn't look like the defense we had seen, a defense that, for the most part, this season has been there, has made stops when it's had to. Obviously not always, because they have 5 losses, but I think you're right. This offense plays into their hands a little bit more. And Lockett is a guy they've all talked about. I mean, Madison has talked about him a great deal. A couple of the players have mentioned him, so they've given him a lot of respect. But, unlike Michigan's offense where you have a Funchess and you have a Gallen and you have options, I mean, you look at Jeremy Jackson, who's made some plays late in the season, even Joe Reynolds, they have a lot of options that make you think, that make a defensive coordinator think. I don't think Kansas State has those kind of options that's going to make Greg Madison, I just worried and wringing his hands, like, well, who do we cover? How are we going to? I think they'll have they'll have a way to defend Lockett, and I think Sam's would give them problems. I do. I think that they've always had a little bit of a problem with a running quarterback, and but Waters is a guy that they felt. I think that he's been more of the reason why they found some success too late in the season. And he's more typical of a quarterback, a drop back kind of guy. And I mean, not the mobile guy he is, but not like Sam. So I think that you're right. This definitely is an offense that could not play into the hands of a Michigan defense, but is more what they're used to defending and have success defending against. Sorry about that, Mike. Couldn't spit it out.
Getting ready for this game in the last couple of weeks, Angelique, I've been talking to a lot of Michigan fans, a lot of my friends, and getting a lot of emails. It seems to me, and I don't know how you feel about this, it feels to me there's sort of a bowl game malaise for a lot of Michigan fans this year. Either they think we should roll K-State, or they just don't know much about them and they aren't excited about the matchup. But, if you're a fan of college football, you have to be impressed by the coach that we're up against on Saturday night. Coach Snyder, he's a great coach. He's a first-class guy. And he's put together a program that's built mostly with 2 or 3-star guys and even a lot of walk-ons. This guy could just flat-out coach, can't he?
Oh, he's terrific. And yesterday was the first time on Monday, the first time I had a chance to ask him any questions, and he's sharp. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, Michigan the last 2 seasons has played some pretty well-established coaches. You got the old ball coach last year at South Carolina, and now Bill Snyder. And he seems like he commands respect. I could tell Brady Hoke doesn't know him well, but has said nothing but just, you almost sense that Brady's sort of doing the little bow, I'm not worthy thing to be in his presence. And he has that kind of respect for him. And it's amazing when you look at what he's done with that program and where it was, where it is now. And I know 7-5 is not where you want to say you're there, you've arrived, but obviously you're right. He's had success over the years. And, it's sort of like looking at Michigan State, and we're talking about getting, not the flashy guys with all the stars by their names, but getting guys who are very coachable and talented, certainly, and being able to coach them and develop them. And that's what he's been able to do at Kansas State. And that's a dangerous combination. I mean, you've got guys who are hungry, guys who have chips on their shoulder because they weren't recruited by the bigger teams in their conferences, and they have something to prove. And I think we've seen that at Michigan State. I think we've seen that at Kansas State. And it's a very nice formula that has worked for him, for Bill Snyder.
Absolutely. I remember I talked to K-State's radio play-by-play guy earlier this morning, and he was reminding me that when Coach Snyder took over that program in 1989, Sports Illustrated had questioned why he would do that, because K-State was the worst football program in Division I history. And when you look back at that now and see what he's done with that program, you have to respect him.
Well, and it's also a program trusting a coach and to build something. And obviously a different situation than a Michigan or an Ohio State or, established programs. But you have to, I think in this day and age, even a program like that, if they were starting now, they'd say, okay, you haven't done your job in 3 or 4 years, you're out, we're going to bring in another guy. I think that's sort of old school, where you see a coach who has been given the keys and said, here, do what you need to do. We're going to give you time to breathe and get this thing going. And that's another thing that's sort of neat to see about that program, because you don't really see that anymore. You don't see a coach that has a chance to really develop something, because we're in such an immediate gratification kind of mode, these days.
Angelique, it's been a season of discontent for many Michigan fans, as we all know. With a loss on Saturday, it could lead to a winter of discontent in Wolverine Nation, fairly or unfairly. How big do you think this game is for Brady Hoke, for Al Borges, and how the faithful view their future in Ann Arbor?
Well, it has been a noisy season, and I keep saying that just because the fans, and I think it's with the proliferation of social media, you hear more and you get more contact with fans about how unhappy they are. And even just going to the gym, I was shocked, Mike, the week of the Ohio State game, talking to people who are diehard Michigan fans, and they had no interest in going to the Ohio State game, and that shocked me. And I thought, wow, I mean, this is your team, and I know it's not been a fun team to watch. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I watched that Northwestern game until the field goal with my head in my hands, just thinking, wow, someone make this end. And I really, there is a malaise going to this game. I don't sense that there's a lot of interest. I mean, they've sold half of their ticket allotment. They were given 11,000 tickets, or they bought 11,000 tickets to sell to their fans, and then turned back about 4,500. And I think that they expected to draw more from their West Coast alumni base here, and they still may. They may get walk-up traffic, but to me, that's just a sample of the lack of interest late in the season. And I do think their performance against Ohio State and that they tried to go for it, at the end to win, I think that gave people a little bit of a hope. But I think going into this game, Mike, that yes, people, as we said earlier, not that thrilled because it's not a New Year's Day game. And I think now, I do think though, with Shane potentially being the starter, I think people are going to tune in and watch it, because they want to see, here's this kid that a lot of people, we want to see Shane Morris on the field, get rid of Devin. Well, here's the chance. Here's your chance. And I think that because Shane will play, I think more people will watch now. And I think that you go in with no expectations, and you just say, okay, I want to see what's going to go on, and kind of write off the season and move forward. And I that's the sense I'm getting a little bit more from Michigan fans, is they've written off this season and not happy with it, certainly. I mean, not by any means, but move on. And maybe this kid's the next thing, the next great thing. You never know. And now we'll get a chance to see him Saturday night.
Indeed, we will. A few quick closing questions for you, Angelique. At the end of the season, I think it was right after the Ohio State game, maybe at his Monday presser, Brady Hoke was asked about Devin coming back for the next season. He said, don't worry, he'll be back. And then that sort of changed in the following weeks, where he said, ask Devin. Do you think Devin Gardner is serious about entertaining thoughts? No?
No, I think a lot of, Denard Robinson did it too. I think a lot of these kids want to know. They just want to know what their standing is and get a gauge, like a baseline. And, I think he'll be one of those. We haven't had a chance to speak to Devin since the Ohio State game. And, I think that he probably will file the paperwork, if he hasn't already, with the draft advisory board, and just to get a sense of where he stands and what he needs to do, where scouts seem to think that he needs to improve. So I just think that's a natural thing. I mean, Denard did it. They just want to know. But no, I can't see. I'd be shocked if Devin wasn't playing at Michigan in 2014.
No, I absolutely agree with you on that. A final question then, Angelique. Chris Spielman earlier this week said Michigan struggles fall squarely on Brady Hoke and his staff for not developing all of the 4- and 5-star kids on this roster better and faster. Do you think that's the general opinion, just his opinion, and is it fair?
No, I think it's a general opinion, and I would think if you could get Brady Hoke to speak publicly about these things, which he doesn't, these are things he wants to keep in-house, my hunch is he would say the same thing, that he's disappointed in the way that the players have been developed, and he's not thrilled with his coaching staff right now. Not that I'm saying he's going to cut ties with anybody. I don't think he'll do that. If this is his choice, I think his staff will be intact, as he said a few weeks ago. And I think, of course, there's room for evaluation. They'll do that after this bowl game, and he'll talk to his coaches like every coach does. But I think that's a very fair commentary from Chris Spielman, and I think he's a very good analyst. I know a lot of people don't like listening to him, but I think he really does have his finger on the pulse, and I think Spielman's right. I think this falls on the coaches. I mean, you cannot have players develop themselves, and I think when you hear even the head coach saying, I asked him this at mid-season, and he said, I would say when you ask what the personality is, and he said inconsistent. Well, I mean that says something. I mean your head coach is saying they're inconsistent. Well, that's because of the coaches. They're not coaching them consistently. They're not getting a consistent performance out of them, and he's going to hold them accountable. There's no doubt in my mind that Brady Hoke is going to demand more from his coaching staff, and obviously from the players too. But I think if you could get him to say it publicly, he would say he's been disappointed with the production from his coaches.
Well, it would be nice then if this Saturday in the Buffalo Wild Wings Bowl, Michigan can put together maybe not a performance like last time we saw them against Ohio State, but a victory will at least salve the fan base and make for a more pleasant winter for Coach Hoke and the staff.
Oh, no doubt, Mike. I mean, every team wants to go out of the bowl season with a win, and it'll be hard. I mean, I think with a freshman quarterback, but again, I mean, you never know. This is a chance this kid's wanted for a long, long time. He's more than likely going to get it, and he has some terrific skill sets. He can throw the deep ball well. He throws a hard ball. I mean, they worked on getting him some finesse and developing that. So. He will only get better from this experience, and I think a win, and they could pull it off. I mean, we discussed why. I mean, they could definitely do some damage to the Kansas State defense, but I think a win is sends them off in spring practice, in the winter conditioning, and then spring practice, feeling a lot better about themselves, and then with a lot better outlook in 2014. A loss, I think they just say, well. Okay, this caps off a very disappointing season. Put it aside, move on. So either way, you go into 2014 with a clean slate and a whole new set of pieces to the puzzle, particularly on the offensive line, and you just move forward. And that's what they have to do, because this is a season that I think most people would want to forget.
I don't think anyone's going to argue with that. Our guest here on our preview show for the Buffalo Wild Wings Bowl on our Michigan Game Day segment has been Michigan beat writer Angelique Chengellis from the Detroit News. So, Angelique, enjoy your Christmas. Have a very Merry Christmas in sunny Tempe while we freeze and wait for kickoff on Saturday night. And we, as always, thank you for all the time you've spent with us during the season and look forward to the next time.
Mike, thank you. I hope Santa brings you something other than coal. I think you've earned it, and I wish you and all your listeners a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year as well.
Thanks again to our guest today on our visitor segment, the radio play-by-play voice of K-State football, Wyatt Thompson, and on Michigan Game Day, the angel of the Big House, Michigan beat writer Angelique Chengellis from the Detroit News. Coming up next, Wolverine Quick Hits as we wrap it up here on our Buffalo Wild Wings preview show on the Michigan Man podcast on GBMW Go Blue, Michigan Wolverine. On Wolverine Quick Hits today, other than Devin Gardner's turf toe injury, the Wolverines are in pretty good shape for Saturday night's game. James Ross, who was injured in the Ohio State game, is expected to be ready, and Jared Wilson, who had a pin inserted in his hand in late November, is also expected to be a go for K-State. So the defense should be ready to rumble. I think it's the offense we're all concerned about. It would have been nice to see if the offense could have picked up where it left off against Ohio State with Devin at the controls, but it appears that's not going to happen. so young Shane Morris will probably get the start against K-State. It will be interesting to see what kind of a game plan Al Borges rolls out for the game and how much, if any, he has to scale back the playbook. It's safe to say that having Morris under center is a drastic change from an offense operated by Devin Gardner. We'll have to run the ball better, the offensive line will have to step up, especially in protection, and the receiving corps will have to make some big plays and hang on to the ball. This K-State team comes into the game having won 5 of their last 6, so they got better each week as the season concluded. They aren't a team that scares you when you look at them on tape. They're not explosive, the running game can struggle, and their receiving corps, other than Tyler Lockett, is average. They just work hard, look for a way to make something happen, and keep coming at you. It should be a great game to watch and a big test for Michigan on both sides of the ball. It's supposed to be a great weather night for football on Saturday, as you'd expect in Tempe, so let's hope we can end the season on a high note and come home with a victory to help jumpstart the program into 2014 and Team 135. Again, we'll be right back here next week to recap the game, and every week after that, you can join us for the best in Michigan athletic coverage. It's been a great year, and I've enjoyed bringing you my little show each week. It's truly a labor of love. I wish each and every one of you a joyous and a Merry Christmas. May you be surrounded with the ones you love or in touch with them during this holiday season and weekend. And let's hope Team 134 delivers us all a nice Christmas present this Saturday. Have a great Wolverine week, everyone. Again, Merry Christmas from all of us at the Michigan Man Podcast. And go Blue Michigan Wolverine. I'll see you next week. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Stay positive about Saturday night, and as always, go Blue. Thanks for listening to the Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine. You can find us on the web at www.gbmwolverine.com. That's www.gbmwolverine.com. For audio posts or other fan feedback, please call our listener line at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. Email fan feedback to the Michigan Man Podcast at yahoo.com. That's the Michigan Man Podcast at yahoo.com. The Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine is produced at the studios of Robin Lynn Productions, Allen Park, Michigan. The Michigan Man Podcast is not affiliated with the University of Michigan. Go Blue!